Hey everybody, I wanted to make a quick video talking about the Dynamica sensor, and just to recap, this is an inertial measurement unit with a fusion algorithm built inside that will output Euler angle representations of the sensor in 3D space, and that's a lot of fancy words for it will produce roll, pitch, and yaw measurements in degrees. So the 3D representation, 3D position of the sensor in at about 100 hertz. So it's pretty neat. It also produces quaternions, but that's a different video. I'm still working on ways to parse that data effectively myself, so probably shouldn't talk about it in a YouTube video yet. Anyway, I wanted to talk about in this video. I want to talk about how to in the instance that you had the sensor, how to get the data into your ECU or logger. And thanks to MoTeC being the wonderful company that they are, they have added a DBC import feature that I'm going to talk about real briefly, and also talk about how to integrate the sensor if you have an M1 ECU or you are an M1 build developer. So first off, we're going to go to my website, which is obsidianeng.com, and this should come up. And we're going to go to downloads. And what you'll find on this page is the manual. So it has a bunch of information about the sensor and sort of particulars about environmental conditions and voltage supply and power draw and all that kind of stuff. And then also CAN offset and address information if you wish to write your own CAN config. But I'm trying to make it so that you don't need to do anything other than plug the sensor into a harness and use a DBC file or an M1 builds example project, or these CHX files, which use MoTeC's channel editor software. I would like to make a video about that, but probably later, because it takes a little while to explain how to use it, and it's a super wonderful resource if you have never used it before. So anyway, going back to DBC files and ways to use it with the MoTeC Dash or a Bosch Motorsport product, which is say the C60 logger or the MS6 ECU. You will need to download the DBC file, which is the database configuration. So we'll go ahead and do that. This will forward you to a Dropbox link, and it should allow you to download. Direct download. Save. Okay, so open folder. And so this is now in my downloads folder, so I'm going to open it. And this is what a DBC file looks like. So if you're not familiar, this is basically just a text file at its bare core that has a bunch of symbols and words that indicate what information is being transmitted by the sensor and some information about each message. So is just a quick recap or a quick explanation of this is that this is the decimal representation of the address. These are 3 different values that are transmitted on this address, and they are all 3 of them are 16 bits long. These are the offsets of the message. Anyway, some basic information about the scaling and signing of the sensor, or basic stuff the computer needs to know to how to interpret the data that's coming out of the sensor. And what's so great about this, you may not appreciate how awesome DBC imports are unless you've spent time writing sensor configurations for a MoTeC Dash product, because it is powerfully time consuming, even if you're pretty quick with it. So now that MoTeC has integrated this, I'm going to show you how to use it. It's really fast. So we'll go to C185. 6.1, say no. And so I will start with the new file here. So new default. So this is a blank dash configuration file. And we'll go to connections and communications. And this is the basic CAN input screen for the dash. And so there's obviously, as you can see, no information here. So these sensors are defaulted at 1 megabit, so 1M is correct. Output mode is CAN. And now, previously, you would have to create a new CAN sensor receive for each address. So if you had, let's say, 40 messages split over 10 addresses, you would have to do this 10 times if you use this normal sort of standard messaging format, and labeling them and creating offsets and scalars and finding names to represent your sensor unless you used a custom channel file. Anyway, huge pain in the ass. So not huge pain in the ass, but it definitely takes time. So now you have this wonderful button here. It's import DBC. So this will point you to the folder that holds these, holds the DBC. So you would just double click on it. Look at this. It will automatically populate all of these names and titles for you, which is pretty amazing. And it should do all the scaling as well. So let's actually take a quick look at that. So we'll go in here in 666. So edit. And it'll populate the address and standard and direction of messaging and all that good stuff. And so we'll say pitch, and this is all correct. Sign value. So pretty neat. So once you've done imported the DBC, you just hit OK, send the file to your dash, and you're all done. So that's awesome. Again, if you have not written a custom channel configuration before, you may not appreciate the amount of time this will save you, but take it from me, it saves you a ton of time. So that's great. Closing that out, we will move on to, we could talk about Bosch Motorsport stuff for a minute. So let's open RaceCon, and it's basically just the same procedure we just did with the dash. It's a DBC import, as it should be, because Bosch, fun fact, are the people that created CAN. So that's a pretty legendary achievement. So we'll say CAN bus 1, CAN input, import CAN in from DBC file, drop this here, and then you have all of your stuff ready to go. Add all, done. So you would just send this to the ECU, and then you're all set. Again, that is the beauty of DBC file imports. Everything should be DBC, but that's another discussion entirely. So done with Bosch. We'll say no. Close this file out. And now we will move on to getting this to work with M1. Obviously, I have this working on my desk. So the sensor is currently plugged in. And I will move the sensor around. And obviously, stuff happens. So that's great. How this happens is that on at my website, you will find in the downloads page also not only the DBC file, but you'll find a manual, whenever this decides to load, manual, and what I have here is the M1 build source code. And I wanted to do this to make integration into M1 as clean and simple as possible. And so what this will do is, let's open it and check it out. So I'll open build here, and we'll open the Dynamica. And so this is the file that you would download from the website. This is basically a build project with all of the code written to receive. People are driving around in San Francisco being loud right now. This is all of the code that you would need to receive all of the data that the sensor produces. So I just try to make it as simple as possible and make it easy for the end user. So what I'm pretty fortunate to be friends with a well-respected M1 developer, and I sent him a sensor and this code, source code example, and he was able to basically right-click, copy and paste it into his project and send it to the ECU, and then everything was basically as you see it here. So all of the scaling, offsets, names, units, all of it is ready to go, drop in. So I'm pretty excited about that being sort of the way of the future for sensor integration with M1. So anyway, that is about as much as I wanted to talk about that for this evening. So I hope to have more information for you soon about this sensor and another one that I'm excited about. but I just starting to test that now. So more as that progresses. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this, and we'll be able to talk more about this soon. All right, see ya.